I think what we're talking about is underwriting is a function, claims is a function, actually everything is separate. And one of the things that I was thinking about as each of you was speaking is, as an industry, we're very iterative in our mindset, which is understandable because that's the nature of the regulatory cycle, renewal cycles. Like, oh, your rate went up a little bit, you add another drive. It's all iteration, and we're sort of conditioned to think that way as an industry. And what we're talking about is the coming together of these things. So fraud is not happening in a vacuum on this one little part of the puzzle. It actually spans from pre-underwriting, really, through the life cycle of policy. Right. The handling of the claim, both of you coming with very different perspectives on it. It's really too late once there's a claim. You're talking about how do we bring what's going on in the claims back into the pure conception of the whole thing. How do we, as we look forward, think about moving this industry from one of iteration to, a lot of things we're talking about are completely different ways of looking at the conception of risk and exposure, because the nature of the things we're facing are becoming untenable. And if anyone's wondering if that's true, look at our results last year. And Q4 made up for most of Q1 through 3 because of great investment returns. But the reality is the fundamental underwriting results were not okay last year. And a lot of the drivers of that were not temporal. These are actually becoming the norm. The fraud behavior, the climate change behavior, supply chain. It's not like prices are going to fall 50% tomorrow. They've moved up, and they're at least going to plateau, if not move up a little bit more. So the macro is the macro. How do we get to a place of thinking more holistically about what we face as an industry?
Yeah, I think from a technology standpoint, we're always looking at it from that life of policy approach. And there was talk today about, those who can collect data and, aggregate data and then leverage that data are going to be more effective. It's always been amazing to me at how bifurcated the claims and underwriting sides of the house are. Yeah. And then carriers, when they're so important to each other and there's so much data they could exchange between each other that could help each side do their jobs better and have better outcomes. I've seen it for years where you have claims losses, even, standard losses and fraud investigated claims. There's no way to get that data back to the underwriting side. Yeah. It goes in a black hole and it's never leveraged. And so there's great opportunity with technology to start to develop that more holistic view of your business and start to leverage your data and through that whole policy life cycle, from application to binding to changes to a claim event happening, that information being fed back at time of renewal to evaluate the veracity of the information you were provided on that first application. And it's all tied together.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time of claim is a perfect opportunity. You have someone on site or you're using some method of getting data about that home. You should absolutely utilize that chance to get a better look at what is the asset right now, because it may be very different than when you originally brought that policy in. All of these technologies give you that chance to get a full scan of the home. You could have the full exterior of a home scanned within minutes. While you're going through the process. Why wouldn't you do that? But you're absolutely right. Right now, there's this huge void between the two.
It's crazy.
I think there's some huge opportunities to meld the two together.
Sure. They're preaching my message there. I take it one step further, though, to capturing that data. We all know how much money is bleeding in litigation right now. The second a claim is disputed, it turns into a 4X claim. Well, we need our engineers, we need our attorneys, but I would argue that we don't need them on 90% of these disputed claims. What we need is a before and after picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. That'll resonate 100 years from now as much as it did 100 years ago. In that, look, if the crack was there before the date of loss, if the ceiling stain was there before the date of loss and I have a picture of it, then we don't need to spend all this money on these experts and we don't need to lawyer up to give opposing opinions. Fact is a fact, and it leads to timely, accurate settlements and sorry plaintiff attorneys, you're gonna have to go find something else to do.
So either we need to invent a time machine or do more realistically do a better job of documenting these things with tools that already exist.
That's it
right now. Yeah. I would leave everyone with a thought as we wrap up. This notion of the split up departments and the split up expertise is definitely something we're challenging here. Just for yourselves, from a practical standpoint, for those of you who work at carriers, how many people in underwriting do you know and do you sit with and do you talk to and interact with? That's an easy opportunity to share some knowledge. You know, I was lucky to work in specialty lines where claims and underwriting were a lot more closely aligned together, sat together in some of the carriers. And so we'd hear phone calls where the underwriter is talking to a broker about a risk that they're working on, and the claims people's ears perk up, because that's going to end up coming down the pike at us down the road. And you've got the wordings people who are writing the policies and doing the manuscripting sitting all right there. And by the same token, all of those people are listening to the claims calls that are going on. It's like, oh, that's how that plays out. That's what this, you know, this class of business or this wording ends up turning into when it develops. That's not just for specialty lines. There's value in that in so many areas. So just even asking yourselves, you know, how much exposure do I have to the other things going on? And I mean, even, I know they're going to be packing up soon, but a plug to the expo hall, walking around and seeing what are some of the other solution providers that, you know, we play in this space. Well, here's all this other stuff that I wouldn't have thought to know about. There's value in understanding all of the pieces of the puzzle that come together, not iteratively, but collectively, to resolve these matters. Makes you that much more expert, and it informs your ability to navigate it all. So maybe a challenge to all of us to be more holistic in our thinking, and that's going to help us as we navigate an interesting and challenging set of opportunities going forward. So thank you very much to our panel and to all of you, and thank you for the questions.
Thank you.